Look out, have I actually got a viewer? How you doing, guys? Forgive me if this is a little bit clunky. I haven't used YouTube Live before, so this is very, very different. And let me know if the internet connection is really bad, because the internet sucks where I live. So I do apologize if the internet is a little bit shady. But if it's not usable, I'll have to think about another way of doing things. But anyway, nice picture. Thanks, guys. That's actually me from, I think, the 2012 Club Class Nationals. So yeah, great place to fly out at Lake Keepit. So I am just currently waiting for more people to come in, and great, lots of buffering. Okay, guys, let's get technical here, and let's move. Let's move to a better location. How does that sound? Hey, this is how technical we get. Okay, let's see if this is an improvement for you guys. So unfortunately, like I said, we have shit internet here, and there's not much that I can do about it. Okay, how's that, guys? Yo, Random, how you doing? Much better? Anyway, we're giving this time for people to come on board and lots of stuff as well. "46-hour live connection." Yeah, that would be interesting. Anyway, basically, all I want to, I guess we've got enough people here. We can start doing things. And like I said, if there's an issue, just let me know in the comments, and I can repeat things. But I am going to 7850. Yeah, that's an inside joke if anyone knows that. Basically, this live feed is me talking about my long-term testing of the three main flight controller firmwares, Betaflight, KISS, and Raceflight. And yeah, I had done up some videos previously, which was on my computer that got stolen and so forth, and I just couldn't, to be honest, I couldn't be bothered redoing it again, and I figured this live format seems to be working quite well, so I figured I would come in here and do this for you guys live. That way I can help answer your questions. So I will look at your questions a little bit later on, but I'm basically going to be doing some talking, and once I've done the talking, I can answer some questions to you guys. And if we keep it specific to the topic afterwards, that would be kind of good. So I apologize if I skip some of these questions which are not on topic, but I really do want to keep this on topic. So okay, so let's just get a couple of things up here. I just want to make sure that I am prepared. And where are we? Let's get our notes up here as well. So for anyone who doesn't already know the deal, this is going back a good couple of months now. I got all of the main flight controllers. So this was basically Race Flight, Betaflight, and KISS, I wanted to compare them. So I have been predominantly a KISS pilot, but I also have Race Flight, and I also have Betaflight quads, which I try because I believe that you only fully understand the situation and what works for you if you consistently try all of them. And that doesn't just mean once. That means as hardware updates, as firmware updates, you need to keep on top of it. So I like to keep them there, but primarily flying KISS. And I got myself to a point, and the reason why a lot of this started was because I would be flying all around the world, and I would get to a certain location with the Rotor Riot crew, and you'd pop out without being able to test. You get to this amazing location and you've got like 3 batteries to do something epic and get some amazing footage and then go. And so much of these episodes and these trips depend on the quality of the footage. And what I was finding is some inconsistencies in my KISS rigs, where I would go from one country to the next, or one altitude to the next, or one weather system to the next, and I'd have one day a quad flying great, one day a quad flying crap. And I know full well that when I put a video out, or any video footage comes out there, that you guys out there are going to dissect every little bit of vibration or knockback, or bounce backs, or anything like that happens in there, and go, oh, that's not perfect. That's why that platform is shit, and that's why my platform is good. And I don't really care about that, but I also want to get the good footage to work with that. Hang on a second. My father is behind me trying to put this shit down so that I don't scratch the table, even though it's got foam pads on it anyway. So, anyway, I figured that since there had been some reasonable improvements in the quality and usability of Betaflight, and the Revolt V2 board had come out, and there had been some, and the new versions of Raceflight had come out, and I had a lot of people saying, oh, Raceflight's good, Betaflight's good, and sort of stuff, and I hadn't tested them for a while, so I figured while I was home, it was a good time to actually set up all of these different setups, set them up so that they're identical, and test them in real-world scenarios back at home, compare them, get my thoughts on how they were to set up, any problems that they had, and then use those in the environment that I've been using them. So flying around various places in the world, and comparing all of these guys to see how they actually fly together. So anyway, guys, just a quick checkup. How is the video going? Hopefully it's the quality is not absolutely terrible. Buffering ever so often. Okay, guys. Well, we'll see how we go. I can always do this again and see how we go. The quality of the image is not so important. I'm ugly, and these are quads. You guys have all seen that, so I guess I'm just talking about this sort of stuff. So, okay, getting on to what I did. I got, and I've only got 3 of them here, but I ended up making 5 quads. They're all identical, so yeah, there's different props on here, but for the testing, what I did was I kept the initial testing, I kept everything the same. So same motor, same props, same quad, same design, everything's the same. The only thing that was different was the flight controller and the ESC. What am I drinking? I'm drinking lemon cordial, or lemon like a lemon juice. So yeah, the only things that were different were the flight controller and the ESC. The reason being is that the ESC seems to be such a controversial topic, as well as as well as the flight controller. But I made a very interesting choice when I did this. It was simple. You've got Boris from Betaflight, who's the main guy in Betaflight. You have got Felix, who is the main guy in KISS, and you have got Preston, who is the main guy in Raceflight. Now, I've done some testing before, and the biggest complaint I got from people was that I didn't do what they would have done with the flight controller or the ESC or anything like that. Uh-oh. Having buffering issues, are we, guys? Would this work better if I went to a better internet connection? Okay, I think that because of this absolutely fucking atrocious internet connection, I really need to work on this. Dan, it's got nothing to do with the router. It's got to do with this crappy ass internet that we have in Australia. And I try not to get too political, but fuck you, Tony Abbott. You're the reason why we have shitty internet. Maybe I'm going to have to try at a different time and do it another way. Maybe I should try on Facebook. Do you guys think that I should go back to Facebook? Are we having better internet connection on Facebook? Seems to be better. Okay, I am going to try. Look, I'm just going to continue going through this, guys. We'll see how we go. I apologize for all the. I apologize for the shitty internet. There's not much I can do about it, but I will continue doing this. If I need to do it again, then I will. So let's just put up with it however we can. Anyway, so yeah, basically everything's the same except for the flight controller and the ESC. And what I did was I spoke to Preston, Felix, and Boris and said, what flight controller should I use and what ESC should I use? Felix, it was pretty simple. He said use the KISS FC because that's the only thing you can use, and use the KISS 24 amp. When I went to Boris basically said use the Betaflight thing, and his favorite ESC was also the KISS 24 amp. When I went to Preston, Preston said to me to use the Revolt, of course, the V2 Revolt, and the Bolt 4-in-1 ESC. Now, there's another thing that I needed to have. I don't use OSD, so I wanted something that would give me all of the telemetry that would go through to my Tyrannus, and so I needed that kind of information, and also the Bolt 4-in-1 was probably the first ESC that I got that was able to do that. So they were the ones that I used on the quads. And the other thing that I did was anytime that I had a problem with the flight controller or the ESCs or something along the lines of that, or the install, instead of reaching out to the community, I reached out to the developers, because one thing that Preston said to me the last time that I tried Raceflight was that I didn't ask him for help. So I said, well, look, if you're prepared to give me help to all these guys, then I'm prepared to continue. I'm prepared to continue working on that and just basically fix all the issues directly through these guys. So then I went out there and I basically flew all these guys. I tested them, I compared them, and pretty much just I had problems with all of them. So I guess, hang on a second, Random, are you able to host? Is it going to be better if you host a hangout? Okay, guys, who would like that then? Who would prefer that I go on a hangout with Random? Because it just seems like the internet is shit, and you guys are basically just saying, oh, "I'm having problem, I'm having problem," and then I can't talk because I've got all this stuff going along my screen. Would that be better? So half of you say yes, and half of you say no. That's true. That's very true, Dan. NBN doesn't make my this any faster. So screw it. I'm going to continue on there. Thanks very much for the offer, Random. I'm just going to continue on and get through this. We can always do it. We can always do it another time differently. So essentially, I've got three quads that are I've got three quads which are identical except for the flight controller and the ESCs. The types of flight controllers, the firmware, the ESC firmware was pretty much dictated by the people involved, the heads of each of those ones, and they were the people that I went to for help in setting up all that sort of stuff. So I just want to go through my experiences with the three of them and see how and explain to you my experiences with the three of them, and then we can compare them in various areas. So let's start off with my KISS quad. KISS quad I'm very familiar with. Didn't take me much to do it because I already had a quad all set up that I was familiar with. But I decided to go to the latest firmware at the time, and for the first time ever, I had a flight controller die on me, which I thought was quite funny because it's in the middle of this. Now I could just say not anything, but I want to be perfectly honest here. I had a flight controller that just went non-responsive the moment that I tried to flash some stuff on there, and I had to. It's the first flight controller that just died for no reason for me, so that was really strange. So I put that on there, and I went out and flew, and I had the usual issues here and there with tuning it, and I guess there's not really anything specific to talk about apart from, there were some things that were hard to tune out. I gave feedback to Felix and the developers, and a lot of the new firmware, the 1.3, it has come out because of some of the feedback that I've put in there, particularly the filter software and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, really not much to talk about there. Currently running 1.3 on there. I've been running 1.3 on there for a while, and the latest KISS 24 firmware on there. There's not really that much more to talk about. Didn't really have any major issues. I mean, I'm familiar with the KISS setup, so I wouldn't expect to have any major issues. Going over to the Betaflight. The Betaflight board, of course, I'm using is a Betaflight F3 board. The first thing that I probably had a problem with was I found the pads harder to solder onto. That's because it's got the conformal coating on there. But once I knew about that, it made it a lot easier. The board itself is a PDB and all in one, makes it a lot easier to put everything together. Of course, the power leads being on the bottom are a little bit of a pain, but it's an all-in-one board, and it seems to work quite well. Flash the latest firmware on there. The KISS ESCs, of course, have got the latest firmware on there. I went out there and flew, and it just flew pretty rock solid. for the pretty much from day one, and didn't really have too many problems with the board and the firmwares, all that sort of stuff. Few little niggly things in the way that it flew, but it was reasonably rock solid from day one, and I was quite happy with it. This quad here has got the Revolt, the V2 Revolt, and the Bolt 4-in-1 ESC, and I put them in there with the pins that put it all on there, and so forth. And it was a reasonably easy install to put in there, and it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of nice. It all goes in there well, and it's like a nice clean install. So long as you do it right, which is nice, and you don't have the ESCs out on the arms and all that sort of stuff. My first problems came when I tried to start flying it. So I went to go and fly it, and I lifted it off in the hotel room that I was in there, and it was almost impossible to fly, and I didn't know what the problem was. So I contacted Preston, and all through this, I've got to give a shout out to Preston. Preston was extremely helpful, and said that, he said that he would help me out, and he sure as hell did. He was answering my questions really quickly. It was really great. So we went through some firmware changes. We went through some tuning and filter change on stuff. It didn't fix the problem. And then he said, okay, let's have a look at the caps, the capacitors that you put on there. So I put the cap on there, and he said, you've only got one on there, try putting two on there. I put two on there, and it didn't improve things. And then I find out later on that the caps that they sent out were the shitty quality caps. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that thing that went on there, where the caps were weren't as low as they supposed to be. So he sent me out some new ones, and I put them on there, and they fixed it, but didn't fix it so well. And then I got told that the pins that go through from the top down to the bolt, the ESCs, transmit vibrations. So then I had to remove the plastic surrounds on those ones, and then I had to change them with wires, and then I had to put the caps on there, and then the legs from the caps were too long, so then I had to put 16 gauge wire on those ones and put them on. And I'll be honest, it was a major fuck around. I rebuilt the quad about 5 times, and anyone out there who was doing this for the first time that wasn't in my shoes, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that people would probably be a little bit pissed off with it and say it was shit and that sort of stuff. But I wanted to give Preston the benefit of the doubt, and we kept on working on it. And after about a week of working on it, we'd kind of sorted things out. But my God, that was such a lot of stuffing around. And then I went out there and I got it flying, and then it was just the little niggling things to fiddle with the flying out there. So in the end, I got all these guys all flying pretty good to the point that I'm pretty happy with them. So the question comes down to which one is best, and that's a really hard question to answer, purely because what part is important to you in these flight controllers? It's not just a simple, oh, this one's best and this one sucks. For example, there are so many scenarios where some are better and some are worse. So the way I decided to look at this is to cut it up into various areas. First of all, the install, the user interface, the way that it flies, how easy it is to tune, and so forth, and basically just give my thoughts on them. So first of all, how easy it is to install. For me, I found probably the Betaflight F3 board to be the easiest one to install, followed by the followed by the KISS flight controller. For me, I found the race flight one to be the least easy to install. Reason being is all of these quads, everything runs off LiPo power. I don't have any separate regulators in there. Everything runs off LiPo power, whether it be the flight controller, the VTX, the VTX powers the camera. I don't need any extra stuff in there. And you've got the race flight board, which has the you need the regulator on there, and then you got to shove 2 million caps in there to get rid of the noise and so forth. It's just frustrating. I've never put a cap on a Betaflight quad. Never. I've never put a cap on a KISS quad. Never. And I've never needed to put a cap on there. If I don't put a cap on my race flight board, it flies like crap. So that's great if it makes it fly better, but it's got to fly better than those others to me, in my mind, to warrant it. And I'll talk more about that. So the all-in-one of the Betaflight, yeah, that's really nice. Some people don't like the layout of it, but it's really simple to put in there, and it really depends on your build. If you've got a quad that comes with a PDB on it, or it comes with regulators, or doesn't come with regulators, it depends on the situation of how your quad is built and what components are in there, is depending on which suits you. But the sheer practicality of these other flight controllers sort of put it a little bit higher above the race flight board for me. And once you get them in there, it's great. But the caps and the lack of regulator and all that sort of stuff, I find really, really frustrating, because I don't have that shit in my quad to begin with, because I've never required it. So we've gone from there. So let's say, okay, now you have installed it. Now it's time to get to use the user interface. So you've got the KISS GUI, you've got the Raceflight GUI, and you have got the Betaflight GUI. Let's start off with the Betaflight GUI. Now, I'm good friends with Boris, and we try to talk often, but I gotta say, the Betaflight user interface is the most fucking complicated, retarded user interface I've come across. It's kind of like, I feel like it's back in the MS-DOS days. There is shit everywhere. There are windows everywhere. Everything is manualized. Sure, you can do a lot of things, but 99% of the stuff in there you never touch. And I don't understand why so much of it is in there. Now, if you guys think about it, the Betaflight user interface is basically just a glorified version of Baseflight, which Timecop started back in, 2013 or 2012, and it really hasn't changed that much. It's so damn frustrating. There's so much shit in there, and you've got to go and find it, and you're scratching your head wondering why your radio's not connected, and you've got to fucking find this, and you've got to click that, and then you've got to go to Joshua Bardwell's thing where he does a 15-minute how-to on setting up your radio, and holy fuck, it shouldn't be that hard. It's fine back in the days when this was all just a bunch of little hobbyists, but we're starting to go mainstream here, and it's just not good enough. And look, there's plenty of people out there go, I don't have a problem with it. You don't have a problem with it because you're used to it, or you're technically minded. You give that user interface to someone who doesn't know much about this hobby that we do, their head will explode within 2 minutes. So my only feedback to the Betaflight guys is, if you want to keep up with the community, that's one area you really need to update. Now, I understand it's a lot of work, and I understand that it's an open source project, but okay, you've got closed source people there, and you can't cry poor and lots of stuff. Oh, we can't keep up with those guys. Welcome to the real world. You've got to keep up with it. So if it's one thing I would like to see from all this, is to get the user interface brought up to the 21st century, because it's just a total clusterfuck right now. So the Betaflight one is way down at the bottom of the list, and I I hate touching it. I really hate touching it. Number 2 for me is the KISS user interface. So the KISS user interface to me is basically what it stands for. It is the Betaflight user interface with all of the shit removed and simplified. Now, there are some things in there that maybe are more complicated than Betaflight. Like, for example, what I love about Betaflight is if I want to update the firmware, I don't have to go and find it. It's in there and it'll find it there from the internet. So for the KISS guys, if I could put something across to you, and I've said that a lot of this sort of stuff before in private, you should be able to select what firmware you want through the user interface because it's all online anyway. I shouldn't have to go and find any of this. I should be able to get the ESC firmware upgraded through there, and it shouldn't be that hard. The days of us being hardcore hobbyists where we've got to write lines of code to get shit done is long and gone, and if we want this hobby to continue growing, then we need to make it simple for the simple people. We don't need to make it overly complicated. So KISS for me is a step in the right direction, but still could be improved some more. The winner for me is actually the Raceflight one. Now, not in all circumstances, but the little user and the little programs that you have at the start of that, where it moves stick to the left, move stick to the right, throttle open, this is where you want to arm it. Pure fucking brilliance. That is exactly what we want and where we want to go. And KISS, Betaflight, you should be taking note of what Raceflight is doing there, because this is exactly what we want. Now, it's nothing new. This really is nothing new. If you go back to the original Vortex 285, this is going back to 2015. Immersion RC has had this in their setup OSD right from the beginning. It's nothing new, so you can't say that no one's ever thought of it before. It's still old school stuff, but it makes it simple because a lot of people don't want to play with these stupid numbers. They just want to get in there, move the sticks, set it all up, and go and fly. They don't want to fiddle with that. That, on the flip side, okay, cool. Have an advanced section where you can still have your min throttle, your max throttle, and sort of stuff. So if you want to play around with that, you can. But the majority of people have no fucking interest. They want to go and fly. And people have lives. I have lives, and I get sick and tired of doing it. So definitely what Raceflight is doing is going in the right direction as far as user interface is concerned. It's not all the way there. There's certainly a lot of things that are missing that frustrate me about that, but I also know that it's a fairly new program that they've started, but the whole vibe of what they're trying to achieve I think is memorable and should be noted on here on the way that it works. What is next? So next would be how well they fly. Now, how well they fly. This is an interesting one, and this is not how consistent they are. This is something different. And how well they fly and how well they feel is a personal opinion. So I'm just giving you my personal opinion. Doesn't make my opinion right, doesn't make your opinion wrong. It's just my opinion on the way that it feels to me. So I switched over to KISS a long time ago because it just felt so much better than Betaflight, and Betaflight just felt jerky and not smooth at all. And over time, Betaflight has been improving and getting closer and closer and closer. And then Raceflight became a bit more well-known, and they started getting closer and closer and closer. There was still a very big gap between the way KISS felt and Betaflight and Raceflight, but it was still, it was a lot closer. Now, this was about the time that Raceflight brought out the V1 Raceflight board. And to Raceflight's credit, they listened to a number of pilots and they worked on the feel of it. And you've got things like kiss rates on sort of stuff. And you could argue whether it was done the right way or the wrong way as to whether or not Raceflight just went there and put a spectrum analyzer there and copied, or they tried to improve it, whether that's right or wrong. But they improved it. Likewise, between Betaflight 3.1 and 3.1.7, the feel of how Betaflight flew in the air was noticeably different. So now the difference between all three of these guys is like that much, but there still is a difference. They all have their different feel, and they all have their different idiosyncrasies. Now, what I did was I flew all three of them constantly in different areas to compare them. And then what I did was I spent a long time with them. So I'd spend about a month flying nothing but Raceflight so I could get intimate with it. I've spent the last month and a half doing nothing but flying Betaflight, and then I went back to them again. And for me, although the difference is small, waiting for it, it says I've got a very bad connection, so I'm waiting for it just in case it's not buffering too much. Still says very bad connection. I'm sorry if the internet's shit here, guys. That's welcome to my life. I've actually sometimes it's taken upwards of 5 days for me to successfully upload a video where I am. It kind of sucks. So, okay, it still seems like it's working. So for me, the one that still feels the best, that like I was flying Raceflight, then I was flying Betaflight, and I was flying Betaflight around for a while, and I'm like, wow, Betaflight's flying really well. I went back to KISS, and I'm like, yeah, KISS is it's just got that little bit of an edge in the way that it feels in the air for me, and it's minimal, but it's enough for me to go, oh yeah, that little bit. As a freestyle pilot, I love that feel. So for me, KISS wins out on the feel, and Betaflight and Raceflight are probably equal second. I wouldn't say there's a clear winner there. And once again, this really is an opinionated bit. It's not fact. It comes down to opinion. But I go away and I come back to KISS, and I'm like, yeah, it just feels really, really nice to me. Consistency. Now, this is an interesting one. The reason why I started to do a bit more long-term testing was because I had inconsistency issues with KISS, and some of this was through to just some of the earlier firmwares, and some of it was just through to me going, is there something better out there? So I started testing all of these guys. And I went and tested them. So I'd go here, I'd fly over to China, and I'd fly all three. I'd go to America, and I'd fly all three. I'd fly in snowy conditions, I'd fly in hot conditions. And I was expecting to see a really big difference. But you know what? I didn't. You go to these different locations, and one day KISS is flying the best, one day Betaflight's flying the best, one day Raceflight is flying the best, and I was not getting a consistent winner in the consistency area. I would say over a long term, maybe Betaflight was a fraction of the other guys, but I'm sure if I did another long-term test, it might go out a little bit different. But I didn't really see a clear winner there. And there's so many variables in there. I mean, you might get one quad that might have a slightly more damaged motor than the other one, and yeah, it's very hard to put out there. You might have had one quad that's been crashed more. There's just so many little variables there that it's very, very hard to to put down on paper, but I would say that maybe Betaflight was a little bit more, but that kind of makes sense because Betaflight, if you leave it stock standard, has a lot more filtering on it than KISS or Raceflight, so that kind of makes sense. But that's also another thing worth pointing out. The Betaflight stuff and the KISS stuff and the Raceflight stuff, I've tried hard mounted, I've tried soft mounted, I've tried notch filters on and off on both the KISS and the Betaflight boards. I've tried PT1 set and the normal setting for the low pass filter on Betaflight. Raceflight, I have tried RC1, RC7, RC12, RC13, 14, 15, 17. I've tried so many of these firmwares on Raceflight so that I could find out what's going on there. So I guess really I've got to come to a conclusion into what works best for me and what is my favorite flight controller. The only best way, and it was actually someone was talking to me, I think I was in someone's vlog where I was over in France saying this. They all suck and they're all brilliant. There's not one there that is blowing me out of the water to being totally amazing. I will continue to have all three of these flying because the moment another firmware comes out, it's a completely different ball game. So I will continue to test them. Which one will I primarily fly in my quad? Probably the KISS setup because it just feels the most natural to me for the way that I want to fly. So that's what I'm probably going to have in there, but I will most likely have a KISS or a Raceflight setup as a spare quad at times because I want to be able to test them. I'll answer that question now. Random said, which firmware am I using? So the Betaflight one, I have been using 3.1.7 nearly the entire time that I've been flying it because it just fucking works. The Raceflight, I've used RC1, RC7 or 299 or whatever it is, the one that the hardcore fans love. RC12, RC13, RC14, and I'm currently on RC17. When I changed through to these, the issues that I had that I was trying to fix, changing between these didn't really notice a huge amount of difference. So yeah, and the KISS firmware, I've been using the 1.3 firmware for the majority of the time, including before it was out available to the public. And so yeah, I've been trying all them out. The biggest difference. Here's an interesting thing I want to talk about, and it needs to be said because I kind of get sick of this shit. The biggest differences and improvements that we've had is through firmware. Reason why I say that is I have got an F3 flight controller running 1 kilohertz. I'm still running 1 kilohertz on my KISS. I've got an F3 flight controller running 8 kilohertz. I've got an F4 controller running 32 kilohertz. They all fly exactly the fucking same. I'm not seeing 32 kilohertz destroying everything the way that it flies. It's not amazingly hugely better than 1 kilohertz. It flies the same. I'm not seeing any difference. I'm not seeing any difference, guys. So if you guys want to go out there and you're finding a huge difference by going to 32 kilohertz or 60 billion kilohertz and all that kind of shit, I'm happy for you. But I'm out there, I'm doing an honest review, long-term review, not just one flight of someone else's quads onto stuff or anything like that. Just no difference. Someone said there, you're noticing the difference in black box. I'm happy that you're noticing something in black box. My fingers and my eyes don't give a shit what is happening in black box. At the end result, it's how it flies, it's how it responds, and the video footage that you can get. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not it's 1 kilohertz or 32 kilohertz. They can all fly great and they can all fly crap. Now, I'm kind of getting sick and tired of, like, my favorite one is people going like, and I don't want to defend them or anything like that. I'm not getting paid to defend them, but people say, well, the KISS hardware is old tech now and they need to move along. Before I go any further on this, they are actually moving along. They've got some new stuff coming and it's kind of exciting. But when I can get this old tech flying just as good as your new tech, what does it say about your terminology and your theory about how fucking good it is just because it's going faster and it's got a faster loop time? So if people want to think that that works better for them, then that's great. But I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. And if it works for you, that's great. But I went to the French race and I watched all the KISS racing guys flying. They were all flying like 1 kilohertz, and some of the guys were running RC28, and they won. They kicked ass. So I'm not seeing, even in racing, I'm not seeing anything that's noticeably different. And this is the thing that kind of frustrates me, that everyone is so hyped up on numbers that they want to believe, and I just don't get it. So I'm not saying that 32 kilohertz is wrong and it's shit and you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that I'm not seeing a big difference between 1 kilohertz and 32 kilohertz. To me, it's more the setup of all the other components and the way that you tune it and how good quality the components are, rather than how fast you're running a PID loop. And the videos that I put out, the test comparison, I hope really proved it, because no one was consistently picking anything. No one was picking out the ones that they thought they were, and that's why I kept it totally quiet. And this is exactly the way I want to do it. I think we really need to stop with this hype shit, because that's what I'm calling it. There's so much hype stuff out there. If 32 kilohertz works for you, great. I'm not going to call you wrong, but I'm seeing 1 kilohertz flying just as well. So what are my final opinions and thoughts about this? I personally think that the Raceflight hardware is a bit of a pain in the ass to use, because it can't take full LiPo, it's only a 5-volt power, and because of all of the caps and stuff. Other people may find that not to be a problem, but I find that rather annoying. Other than that, it sets up pretty good. And there's no real other issues with the hardware. The Betaflight stuff, I mean, choose your flavor. There's a billion different flight controllers out there. They all do exactly the same thing. They all fly Betaflight extremely well. And I guess it's not the quality of the flying that you're looking out for when you want to go and pick a flight controller. It's the ancillary components that are on and the layout of the flight controller which is important to you. So forget your F3, forget your F4, all that sort of bullshit, or whatever fucking gyro it is. Pick something that has a layout that you want. If you want something that's got an OSD inbuilt, get one that's got an OSD inbuilt. If you want something that's got an SD card reader, then get something that's got an SD card reader. Whatever the performance, I've tried a decent number of flight controllers. They all fly the same. They all run Betaflight good. That's at the exception of some of the really old ones that are struggling to run Betaflight at its full potential. Um, KISS stuff, what can I say? I'm familiar with it. I'm pretty happy with it. I generally don't have a problem with the KISS stuff. There is some new hardware on its way, and the layout is going to be slightly changed. For all those people that want updates, it's slowly it's slowly coming, but there are updates coming out there. As far as the flying is concerned, they all fly good and they all fly crap. They've all got their tiny little idiosyncrasies. I guess I could say the thing I don't like about Betaflight, although it is more consistent, is it has little wiggles and twitches onto stuff through the air, and it seems to be more sensitive to that, so it's harder to get rid of that. The KISS stuff just seems to be a lot more locked in general for me than the Betaflight stuff, and the race flight in general flies pretty good. It's reasonably locked in, but it'll have wiggles and twitches on it as well, as much as the KISS. No more, no less. Yeah, it's horses for courses. The difference in the way that they fly is kind of minimal. And what else is there? The user interface. The user interface. Okay, love the Raceflight user interface and where they're going. They need to do a lot more work on it to finish it off. But all of the little the apps or whatever you want to call it at the start to help you to open it, to make it a lot easier, is brilliant, and everyone else needs to take note that and follow. The KISS stuff is good, but still needs improvement. For example, there are problems with flashing stuff through the user interface on Windows computers. Not a problem for me because I use Macs. But seriously, you need to have it available for everyone to use. You need the ability to use both Windows and Mac. So KISS guys, fix that stuff up so that the Windows guys can use it as well. It's not fucking good enough. Betaflight, you just really need to start again. The user interface is just fucking wrong. It's too complicated. There is so much shit there, and it's basically something that's been patched up for ages and ages and ages. One other bit of advice I think I would give, I spoke to the developers of all of these flight controllers a fair bit, and got their opinion on everything and their input, and as well as their help. So this is probably the best thing that I could suggest to Preston, Felix, and Boris. Get out there and fly the other flight controllers. It boggled my mind, actually, how little these guys knew about either one or both of the other flight controllers. The way to run a successful business or make a decent product is not only to know what you're good at doing, but also where you're lagging behind. It's that simple. So get out there and fly it. Like Preston said to me, he has virtually no knowledge of KISS. Go and fly it and get to understand it. And I know that Felix has very little knowledge on, I think it's Raceflight. Go and fly it. You'll see that there's some good shit in there. You guys will learn from that. So yeah, I don't know what more to say, but I think we need to really calm down on these flight controller wars and realize that there's not a huge difference between these ones. They all have slight little idiosyncrasies, and they can change from firmware to firmware. There is not one flight controller firmware out there that rules them all. They all kind of suck in some way, and they're all great in some way. So find what works for you, use it, enjoy it, and make the most of it. Don't go out there and tell everyone else that their flight controller software sucks and they're in the wrong, because I got news for you. Yours sucks as well in certain ways. So yeah. Anyway, I think I've said enough there. My final consensus is that I'm keeping all of them. I still love my KISS rigs and probably will fly a reasonable amount of that. And we can go from here. Oh, I've got a one that I think is worthwhile, and it's been doing for a while. I guess the the Revolt guys probably made it the most popular and got it out there. Soft mounting your flight controllers and soft mounting your motors. I've done them both, and I've done them quite a lot. Do they both work? Yes. If you soft mount your motors correctly, you can get some improvement. It's a small improvement, but it makes things a lot more complicated. I have never really been a huge fan of soft mounting flight controllers up until a bit more recently when I was trying some other things, because it's just a bit too complicated. I love the way that the Revolt is soft mounted, and it seems to work well. I have got this Betaflight F3 board soft mounted on these, like those rubber standoffs, and I've also got this KISS flight controller soft mounted on the rubber standoffs. And I would recommend that if you've got problems with your flight controller, that you try soft mounting it, and it will help with some of the things. Now, do you need to soft mount? No, you don't. You only need to soft mount if you've got a problem that soft mounting will fix. It's that simple. And I'm finding that soft mounting is allowing my quads to be more reliable in most conditions, and with my gear being smashed up more than usual. So that's the way that I'm going to be going, and I'm probably going to be doing a lot more soft mounting testing in the future, and just making sure and seeing how well it actually works. But I'm all for soft mounting if it's done rightly. You can't just stick something on there and make it soft mounted. You've got to make sure that all the wires you've got to connect it on there are not necessarily making it hard mounted. There's so many variables there, and the type of soft mounting method that you do may not be a true soft mounting method. The type of rubber that you use, or the size standoff, or the length, adjust the frequency that the soft mounting is trying to fix. There's so many variables in there, but what I will say is I'm certainly an advocate of a soft mounting method that works for your scenario. So I think I'm pretty much done here, guys. I'm up for questions. Bearing in mind, can we try and keep them on the subject in hand, and we can go there, but I'm happy to answer any questions. You guys are there. I'm not going to get into personal arguments if you think I'm wrong and all that bullshit, but yeah, let's see if we got any questions. I prefer your face with my face on it, Schizo. KISS 1.3 is reliable. Is it reliable? I'm running it and I haven't had a problem with it. So I haven't had a reliability issue with any flight controller firmware, with the exception of like RC12 and around that sort of stuff on Raceflight. RC17 has been very reliable for me. Is there an FC that is better for freestyle? That is an opinionated question. So the FC is the one that suits you best. I can't really give too many spoilers on the KISS products. Felix is doing some interesting stuff there, though. Would you recommend switching from Betaflight to KISS? Rough Rider, I would recommend that if you want to try. You might find in your scenario that Betaflight works better for you. You might find that it flies better for you. If you want to try. I'm not going to say that KISS is better than Betaflight because they're so similar. There's so many things that come down to personal preference. Sorry guys if I'm missing any of your questions here. Was this with the notch filters lowered on Betaflight? Ben, this was with the notch filters both on and off. I've tried it both to see which works best. And I've currently got my Betaflight Freestyle quad has no notch filters on it, and set PT1. I think I've got the D-term notch still on. That's working best for me at the moment. Can you turn off damped motors in KISS? Old man Duffy J. I guess you're talking about BL Heli. BL Heli, you can't change anything through KISS. I don't see Felix supporting BL Heli at any time soon either. What motors do I recommend for freestyle and be smooth? The motors that work for you. There's so many motors out there. There's very few crappy motors out there at the moment. Can confirm. Well, yeah, I'm soft mounting these ones on here. I don't soft mount everything, but these ones are improvement. Soft mounting doesn't automatically mean that you should do it to everything. Everything's a specific case. Let me get them PIDs. Well, right now, my KISS flight controller is flying on stock PIDs, except pitch is 4 instead of 3 on P. That's it. Will said, for the average Joe, race flight 1 is more fragile for those crash more often. Well, it really depends. I'm not really finding a difference between them. Is there an air mode in KISS now, or do you still use idle up? Die Awen. Okay, so I stopped using idle up about a year ago. There has always been an air mode in KISS. It's not really an air mode, there's no such thing as air mode in KISS. Same thing as in race flight. There's no such thing as air mode. All you need to do is put your min command to 1,000, and it will work perfect for you. And then you just set to min throttle to the idle throttle that you want it to be. It's pretty simple, and I've been using that for about a year now. If you are using Betaflight, then I would highly recommend using air mode, because now it's good. It used to be shit, but air mode is now good in Betaflight. I don't understand why you even have to turn it on. It should just be on all the time. Have I tried BL Heli 32? Yes. It felt like an ESC. Have I seen Chapu? I see him daily. He's in my basement. I think everyone needs to give a thumbs up, because Schizo's trying really hard to troll, and I just want to give him a hug. Yes, I use air mode and I use anti-gravity in Betaflight. Once again, I don't understand why you need to turn them on. Just have them on all the time. I never turn them off. They're constantly on. Yes, I've tested KISS with BL Heli. I don't know whether my D is higher with BL Heli. If it's 2 points higher, I don't really care. It's set to where it needs to be, and if it flies good and it looks good, then I don't really care. So I've flown it with BL Heli, and I didn't notice an improvement. So, yeah. KISS does have an all-in-one board. They've got a flight controller and 4 ESCs already out. Okay, you hear that, guys? That's the scoop right now. Schizo prefers ground mode. What is my Betaflight PIDs? Why do you want to know? Because it's not really going to help. your quad. So happy to give people my numbers, but it doesn't really make any difference. Anyway, guys, I think we've had enough questions and answers and all that sort of stuff. I think I've summed up enough on what is going on with my thoughts on this. I'm happy to talk some more at a later stage, but turtle mode, yes, I've got turtle mode. It works. I thank you guys for hanging around. And apologies if the internet connection has been pretty crap. This has been a hard one to deal with, but I'm going to do some more live feed stuff with more specific and simple topics in the future. If you guys want me to talk about anything in particular, I'm more than happy to talk about it. Just let me know, maybe in the comments or whatever, and we can go from there. So yeah, all I can say is, guys, go charge your batteries, get your favorite fly controller, and go out and fly. And for those ones who are extremely opinionated on things, go out and fly with the extreme knowledge that you have the best shit in the world and everyone else is wrong, and enjoy that fact. And for the rest of us, just go out and have fun, and we will I'll see you guys in a park sometime soon. Ciao, guys. Thanks very much.